When you think about Mario Kart, what's the first thing that comes to mind? Is it getting Mario Karted? Or is it making that sweet last-second comeback while dodging the shock to get first place? Mario Kart is a racing game, but the thing that defines Mario Kart and separates it from other racing games is the items. If you're like most players, the items in Mario Kart are simple. You drive through an item box, see what you get, and you start using it. If it's a speed item, you go faster and take shortcuts. If it's an attack item, well, you attack your opponents, and they'll probably attack you back. You know, it's just a fun party game where anyone can win, there's a lot of luck, so don't take it too seriously. But the reason why Mario Kart is such an incredible game is not just because it's fun for new players. Every Mario Kart game has immense mechanical depth in how you can drive faster by taking difficult and risky shortcuts, and how well you can use items. And I'll be real with you, the shortcuts, while they are flashy and are very important, I would argue that there is even more skill expression in item play, as there are just so many different items, you don't know what you're going to get, and you must quickly make the best decision about how to use your items. Some items are powerful, some items require a lot of skill to use to their full potential, but some items are not like this. Some items are bad. Okay, so first of all, I love Mario Kart for all of its competitive intricacies and just how much skill it takes to win races. I do play Mario Kart competitively, so I understand that it's a bit of a silly game sometimes, and I accept the beauty with its flaws, for better or for worse, in sickness and in health, whatever. But when my race gets ruined because of poorly designed item mechanics, then it's simply not my fault, I should have won, and this game is stupid. So with that being said, there are several reasons why an item in Mario Kart can be bad. Obviously, some items are just not as powerful as other items. Right, single mushroom is worse than triple mushrooms. That's kind of the whole point of giving better items to the players who are farther behind. But it would be really boring to just say, oh, the stuff you get in first place is the worst, and the stuff you get in last place is the best. Obviously, that's the whole point of this game. So let's go deeper than that. You could look at it from a competitive game perspective, as some items are great because they reward skill more than others, and some items are bad because they just cause mindless chaos, and sometimes an item is bad because you get it in a spot where there's just no benefit to having this. Those are a few reasons why I might say an item is bad, but that's not all. I also just enjoy Mario Kart. You know, I enjoy loading up a race and just wreaking havoc on my unsuspecting friends, who then become my former friends. It's very sad, I know. So just because an item is bad competitively doesn't mean it's automatically a bad item, because what if it just makes the game more fun? Today, let's go through my list of the 7 worst items in Mario Kart World, with 7 reasons for why these items are bad. As we go, I will explain each of these reasons, and let me know in the comments if you agree or disagree with my item choices and the reasons. But one item I'm sure we can all agree is a bad item is the coin. In a game full of powerful speed items and attack items and items that make you invisible, the coin item just sucks. So that's the first reason an item can be bad. Let's write that down. An item is bad if it is not good. Okay, that's an easy one, and we all saw this one coming. When you use the coin, it raises your coin counter by 2 and gives you the tiniest speed boost of all time. That's all it does. And yes, having more coins does raise your top speed, which is a good thing over the course of the whole race, but this leaves you unprotected against attack items like the red shell. The coin item is the most common item you can get in first place, and this is another reason why it's so bad. See, an item can be bad for multiple reasons. Let's write down another rule. If an item is not useful, getting it more often makes it worse. The coin is just much worse than any of the other items you can get in first place, including the best item you will rarely get in first, the Super Horn, which you can use to break the blue shell. Or even a coin block, which gives you 8 coins instead of 2 and a much bigger speed boost, allowing you to build up enough speed to create a lead away from the chaotic pack. The feather can be used to take shortcuts and dodge items, and the green shell and banana can be used to dodge red shells. The coin is simply the worst item you can get. Thankfully though, the coin is not as bad in Mario Kart World as it was in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. I mean, technically the coin has not changed between these two games, but in the past it was very easy to pull red shells in second place, making it even worse when first place is unprotected. Also, you could only reach 10 coins before, but now you can reach 20 coins in Mario Kart World, so the coin item stays useful for longer in the race. When I talk about the coin item being bad, something I've heard a lot of people say is that the coin item is actually not so bad, because you can use it as boo protection. See, when another player uses a boo and steals your item, it always steals from your first item slot. So if you just hold your coin there, then the boo will steal your coin instead of your other, more useful item. Ah, but do you see the problem with this logic? Your plan is to let the boo steal your coin so it won't steal your better item. Okay, so we're just admitting that the coin is the worst. Thank you for proving my point. But yes, this is a real technique that you should be using in first place, and it can win you races. But let's not act like the coin has any special anti-boo superpowers. Most items can do the exact same thing, you know, get stolen by the boo. But you know which item cannot do this? The super horn. Yeah, because the boo cannot steal the super horn. So this is actually the best protection against a boo in first place. Okay, this one's pretty simple, so we'll keep it short. The blooper is an extremely rare item, and when you use it, it puts ink on the screen of every player in front of you. That's it. So you can think of it pretty much like the shock. It's an attack item that hits every player in front of you, but instead of crushing their dreams and deleting their items with the power of lightning, you kind of just tickle them and rub their eyes a little bit. Competitively speaking, the blooper doesn't do much. I mean, it can hide an item from your view, and it makes your vehicle slightly more slippery, similar to when it's raining after the shock, so certain shortcuts become riskier to take. But other than that, it's not something I always even notice too much. Plus, unlike an item like the shock, or even an item as simple as the green shell, you usually cannot see the effect of what your blooper has actually done. You kind of just use it and hope it did something. You know, it maybe didn't do anything at all. This is another reason why an item can be bad. And this one falls more into the category of good game design. An item is bad if it does not feel good to use it. So that's one reason why this item is not great, but that's not to say it's useless. For new players, the blooper can be absolutely deadly. Not knowing where to go can make you easily drive off the track, run into cars or enemies, and it uses a lot of your attention, so you can't focus on dodging items like red shells from other players. So there's definitely an argument that the blooper can be useful, but even then, you could just argue that this makes the blooper even worse, because it kind of goes against the entire design of this game. I thought the items are supposed to help the worst players do better, is an argument I've heard before, but I can't fully agree with this. A lot of people think that the item system is trying to benefit the less skilled players, but that's not actually what it's doing. The item system benefits players who are in a lower position, that's where the better items are. And sure, the worst players are often in the lower positions, but not always. The best players understand that you can just go to a lower position if you really want the better items. It's just a strategic trade-off between being further ahead or getting good items. And being at the front is usually better, but there are often situations where you want to intentionally slow down a bit, or slow down a lot, depending on what other players are around you and what kind of items you need to win. And like it or not, that's part of what makes Mario Kart a difficult game to master. Anyway, the blooper still sucks, at least it's rare. Next up, we have a bit of a curveball. Okay, not literally a curveball. These balls don't curve. They move in a straight line, but they don't even need to curve to hit you, because you can throw 8 of them at once. So the Fire Flower and Ice Flower are kind of the same item. When you get this item, you can throw up to 8 balls, and they're big. They're fast, and they bounce. And when you use these balls... Okay, you know what? I'm just gonna start calling it fireballs because it just sounds better. When you throw these fireballs, there is a timer that counts down and limits your number of throws, so you usually want to use them all very quickly. When you get hit by fireballs or ice balls, you don't slow down for as much as some other hits. For example, getting hit by a shell stuns you for a while and brings you to a lower speed. But when you get hit by a fireball, you only slow down a bit and you can quickly reaccelerate. Okay, now you might be wondering, why is this on a list of the worst items in Mario Kart? It seems quite powerful to use, but at the same time, the victim can recover quickly enough that it's balanced, and there's even a timer to limit your use. So what's the problem? Well, good question. There are a few problems with this item. First of all, it's pretty much a guaranteed hit on your target. Remember, these balls are huge, they're fast, they bounce, and there's 8 of them coming at once. Maybe you can take one from behind because you have protection, but any more than that, and it's over for you. And after you hit someone with your balls, because they reaccelerate quickly, they can often counterattack you. Combine this with other players potentially activating a super horn to block it, and everyone getting hit again by randomly bouncing balls, and you just have mindless chaos at this point. Everyone is getting hit, and nobody has the power to make it stop. And if getting a sure hit on multiple players didn't sound annoying enough, the balls are slippery. Okay, what am I talking about? Well, if you're close enough to the edge of the road, for some reason, getting hit by a fire or ice ball will make you slip. And almost always in the direction of falling off the track. No, I am not trying to go there. This is just what it looks like to get hit by a slippery item. Shells don't do this, hammers don't do this, the shock doesn't do this, but fire and ice flowers do. And when you slip and fall off, you also lose your items, which is devastating. Your entire race can get ruined just because someone near you got the balls item. So this is maybe not what you were expecting, but this is more of a critique of how the item contributes to the overall game design. So let's add that to the list. An item is bad if it creates too much luck. Now, this might seem like a bit of a weird take. I mean, Mario Kart is supposed to be a chaotic game with lots of luck, and because of how many players there are and how many items there are, often that is unavoidable. And look, I agree with that. That is 100% true. However, hear me out. What is also true is that Mario Kart is a competitive game. Okay, maybe you don't take it seriously, but I don't mean it's a serious game. I mean it's a competitive game. You compete against other racers to try and get first place, and the player who gets first place wins. So it is a competitive game, by definition. And what makes a good competitive game, one that is fun to play and feels fair, is one where being skilled and making good plays is rewarded. Yes, even in Mario Kart. Now, you might say, wait a minute, Mario Kart has random items. That's not skill-based. And you'd be kind of right. See, the items are random, but that doesn't make winning random. Think about it like this. When you pull a green shell, it's not random whether or not I dodge it. When I pull a bomb, it's not random whether or not I can accurately snipe you with it and win the race. If we just got our items, it's not random that I decided to slow down to space from you because I think you have a super horn, right? These items involve a lot of skill from the attacker and from the defender. This is what makes the game fun. This is how crazy random items can still be a blast to play with and still make for an excellent competitive game. But with the fire flower and the ice flower, your fate is simply at the whims of the player who got the item and which way they decide to throw it. And the only item you are likely to get in a middle spot that can actually dodge fireballs is the super horn. But one-on-one, fireballs still win. It's impossible to react in time, and even if you did, I have 8 throws. I can just throw more later. So yes, this item is sometimes powerful, but I would say in general, it's not as powerful as you'd think. You usually want other items. And if we take a step back and look at the entire game experience, I don't think the slight usefulness of Fire and Ice Flower makes it worth injecting enormous amounts of luck into so many races. So again, just based on their power alone, I would say they're alright. But what really makes them one of the worst items in the way that I'm describing is that they make the game worse. But there's actually one more reason that they're bad that I did not mention, but instead of explaining it to you now, I'll let the next item be the example, as this next item is the greatest offender of this particular problem. Ah, the coin shell.
No. Wait. Huh?
This is one of the most infuriating items for competitive players. Now, if you're a newer or more casual player, there's really nothing wrong with the coin shell. So let me just first explain what this item does. The coin shell trails behind you and can hit other players or block items just like the red shell or a green shell. If you throw it forward, then it moves down the middle of the road, dropping a whole bunch of coins. And it can also hit other players along the way. This is one of two reasons why you should always avoid the middle of the road in Mario Kart World. The coin shell is not always advantageous to yourself, as other players can grab the coins too. But if you do get to benefit from it, that benefit can be huge, instantly getting you up to a high coin count, making you faster than your opponents for the rest of the race. The coin shell is also extremely powerful when used on a rail, since when it hits another player, it doesn't break, it just keeps going. So you can actually eliminate several players at once just by throwing a coin shell. So that sounds great. Or if not great, at least somewhat useful. So why do competitive players hate the coin shell? Well, there's really only one reason. It's because of where you can get it. So let's add another reason to why items are bad. An item is bad if the other items in that position are better. Let me show you what I mean. In 24-player races, the item distribution is quite specific. If you are in 13th place or better, you could get great items, or you could get really terrible items that don't help you come back. So when it's convenient, players often try to slow down to 14th place or worse, because from there, you get some of the best items in the game. You could get triple mushrooms, a golden mushroom, a mega mushroom, even a star, and even a coin shell. Wait, what? Why? Okay, nothing against the existence of the coin shell, but to reference the greatest game of all time, if there is one imposter among us, it's clear who's getting ejected. Why is the coin shell showing up all the way back here? Okay, I get that 14th is not exactly a bottom spot, so maybe it's just that the other items you can get here are overpowered, and the coin shell looks bad in comparison. Well, if you think about it, not really, right? The coin shell shouldn't be showing up in 14th either. Doesn't this feel more like a 6th or 7th place item? You know, an item with similar power to a red shell or triple green shells, but not a mega mushroom. Now, you could argue that the coin shell exists here to create a risk where 14th place is not just a free set of power items. And I wouldn't blame you for thinking that, because that's what I thought at first too. But in practice, the coin shell does not function like your typical risk and reward scenario. During a race, you can just repeatedly re-roll your items in 14th or worse until you get something you think you can come back with. So if you ever get a coin shell, just try again at the next item set. Because the coin shell is relatively unlikely, you can essentially guarantee that at some point you'll have 2 power items before the spot you want to come back, and then just come back there. But things are different at the end of the race. Especially if you just got hit by the shock and lost your items, getting a coin shell is devastating. Because at this point, you no longer benefit from having more coins, and you're not going to hit anyone with your coin shell. Well, even if you did hit anyone with your coin shell, they have speed items and will just pass you anyway. So in this situation, the coin shell is truly useless. It's like if the game randomly decided that you get 1 item instead of 2. And you could drop all the way back to 18th place, which guarantees you don't get a coin shell, but doing this is so slow that it's almost never worth it. Functionally, it feels like the coin shell is just here to add luck. It's a gamble you're forced to take, which can be the difference between finishing in a top placement or a bottom placement. And that's not even to mention if, for some reason, you could only get 1 item at the end. I can't imagine that ever happening to me again. The blue shell is the most iconic Mario Kart item. And for those in the comments saying, actually, it's called the spiny shell. Look, the in-game manual says so. Well, I disagree. They even called it a blue shell in the Super Mario Bros. Movie.
Blue shell!
Probably because they realized saying spiny shell would sound ridiculous, because everyone calls it a blue shell. What's next? Are you going to show me the Uno rulebook, which says I'm not allowed to use my +2 on top of someone else's +2 to give +4 cards to the next player? Oh, so you just hate fun. Got it. That makes you just like the blue shell. When you throw a blue shell, it travels down the middle of the road, hitting any player in its path, and then strikes first place with a huge explosion, locking them in place with a lot of stun before they can reaccelerate. Getting hit by the blue shell is much worse than getting hit by any other item. However, this is not all doom for the player in first. You can use a super horn, or a well-timed mushroom, or any other invincibility item, and then you can dodge the blue shell. And if you don't have any of these items, often you can jump off the track and get a respawn boost, which is a lot faster than getting hit. Another thing you can do is get hit near a boost panel to instantly reaccelerate. And if you have some time to do it and you see the blue shell early on the minimap, you can even slow down to back out of first before the blue shell locks onto you, making it target your opponent instead. The blue shell creates a lot of very interesting gameplay and makes it so that being in first place is not too big of an advantage. The main problem with the blue shell has always been for the user. You kind of just use it, and that's it. It doesn't make a difference that you used it and not somebody else used it, except for the fact that it took up your item slot. So really, the blue shell was bad for you. And they addressed this a bit in recent Mario Kart games by making the blue shell travel down the middle of the road and hit other racers, which works great against the bots because that's where they drive, but not against real players who know to stay to the side at all times. Even though you can benefit from the blue shell as you will sometimes pass the player in first who got hit by it, you're usually better off getting any other item and just hoping somebody else gets the blue shell and throws it. So the blue shell is still not great for the user. But what makes the blue shell even worse is how it affects the game in general. Now, don't get it twisted, I'm no blue shell hater. I think it makes for very hype moments, close finishes, and it rewards players who can strategize with their items as they get into first, and it encourages you to take risks to drive just a little bit faster, because even though you have a lead, it's never safe when a blue shell could come at any time. So I like that the blue shell exists. What I don't like is how common it is. In 24-player races, there are usually 1 to 2 blue shells per race. But it's all too common for the blue shell to make an appearance 3 times in one race. That is way too much. Yes, there should be a risk to being in first place, but 3 blue shells? You cannot hold a lead while trying to dodge 3 blue shells and whatever else the other players are tossing at you. So what happens a lot of the time is the players will try to stay out of first place unless they can dodge the blue shell. And even if you have a blue shell dodge item, boos are pretty common and first place gets stolen from the most. So good luck holding on to it. Especially when I'm in second place with the boo. I will definitely wait for the blue shell before stealing it from you. And that's not all. It gets worse. On many tracks, you can fall off to dodge the blue shell. But now, imagine a track where there are very few spots to fall off, and there are a lot of shortcuts. So you already have trouble beating all the players who are zooming up at the end of the race with their golden mushrooms, and add on top of that blue shells are even worse for you now. And remember, first place is the only position out of all 24 racers who cannot get a speed item to take the shortcuts. So, I told you to imagine, right? Did you imagine Desert Hills? Or maybe Cheap Cheap Falls? Or how about Moo Moo Meadows? Mario Circuit, anyone? Or how about the majority of the 202 routes with massive shortcuts and nowhere to fall off? If I can drive faster and do shortcuts faster than everyone else, why am I being rewarded with 1 to 2 blue shells per race, maybe 3, with an incredibly unlikely chance of ever pulling a super horn in first? Not only does this incentivize staying out of first entirely, it also incentivizes grabbing triple mushrooms at the start of the race and then getting into first by taking advantage of the big shortcuts. Okay, look, it's not as bad as I'm making it sound, but the way that I'm making it sound is how a lot of races do play out. Why go forward and risk a blue shell when I have a better chance of achieving the exact same thing and be protected against the blue shell if I just slow down, fight for a good item, and then go forward. And what if I do exactly that, but the blue shell shows up really late after I already lost my item to the shock or a boo? And now I take a massive L just because I got a bit unlucky. So this is another reason why an item can be bad. An item is bad if it creates bad incentives. Now this one is highly subjective, and maybe you think the game is better off with more blue shells. You could have the opinion that bagging, which is staying in the back for better items and making a comeback later, you could argue that is very good for the game, and it should be very powerful. If you think that, you're right. I can disagree with you, and I'm also right, because what you want the game to be is just a wish. There's no such thing as a correct answer. So all I can do is give my opinion, and I think the frequency of blue shells forces players to play around it to an unreasonable degree that over-incentivizes you to do other strategies rather than just driving forward. And again, I have nothing against the existence of the blue shell. I think it's good and adds a level of skill and planning to the game, and it makes for really hype moments. I think the blue shell is a really fun item. It just shows up too much in Mario Kart World. Before we get to my number one pick for the worst item in Mario Kart World, I want to share a few honorable mentions. Kamek is an interesting one. When you use the Kamek orb, Kamek flies down the track and transforms everyone in front of you into an enemy character, while also spawning hazards on the track. Besides potentially unlocking a new character, this does two things. When you get transformed, you briefly lose the ability to drift or trick. This is often not a problem, but sometimes it is devastating if you lose your drift on a sharp turn. This gives the Kamek user some strategy for when to activate it. And as the player getting transformed, you often need to be creative and react quickly to mitigate the damage. Now, as for the hazards spawned by Kamek, these are just something else. Sometimes this stuff doesn't even matter. Either it's easy to dodge or you don't even notice it. However, sometimes they are incredibly difficult to dodge, and you'll wonder why you're taking the race seriously when it's Mario Kart, and of course you might run into 4 spike balls, because of course they roll downhill because of gravity, of course. How did I not think of that? Or you might encounter this pattern of chain chomps blocking the road. Oops, shouldn't have been there. Next time you'll know better. Now, the reason why Kamek is not one of the worst items is because you can occasionally find good use out of it, especially getting people on a sharp turn. And jokes aside, it really does take skill to manage the transforming moments and to dodge difficult enemies. Now, for triple red shells. I really thought about including this on the list. How red shells work is when you throw it, it follows the player in front of you to try and hit them, and it can be blocked by most attack items. If you ever feel like you get red shelled too much in this game, let me tell you why. The first reason is obvious. Triple red shells are pretty common. I already feel like that's a problem, but that's not all. The second reason is that players who have already been hit by something are on a red shell cooldown. So if you try and hit someone shortly after they've already been hit, the red shell just targets the next player up. So if you time the red shells just right, you can often just hit 3 different players. And when playing online, often the red shell will skip players because of online lag. It thinks one of the players has already been hit when in fact they have not been hit, so the red shells just go for the next player. Red shells also move so fast that often, even if you have a protection item, the red shell will hit you faster than it is possible for a human to react in time. This is not a skill issue. This is literally impossible to dodge. And if you're in the air, it might just land on your head, making it impossible to dodge. If you get red shelled off a glider, you just lose your items. Red shells are often undodgeable, but it's just not a good strategy to constantly worry about them. Because constantly being protected means constantly not having shortcut items. So a lot of the time, getting red shelled is just a risk worth taking. You just have to accept that my race is ruined if I get red shelled here, and there's nothing I can or should do about it. In my opinion, this is pretty bad game design for multiple reasons and could easily be fixed. But the reason I don't have triple red shells on the list of worst items is because they're just so powerful to have, right? Even as just a shield to protect yourself. So a lot of the time you do want to have triple red shells, which cannot be said for the other items on this list. My last honorable mention goes to hammers. Hammers can be thrown forward or backwards up to 4 times, and when you throw them, it creates an arc landing in the distance. Once they land on the ground, they continue to have a hitbox for a moment before they disappear. This is a very powerful attack item, and there are some cool tricks you can do with them. For example, you can get very long distance snipes if you're throwing downhill or when coming from a jump. But if you're going uphill, you can throw them directly on the ground for nearby players to run into, like setting up a little bear trap. Or you know what? It's more like a mouse trap, because this technique is pure cheese. And hey, when this first happened to me, it was pretty annoying. But that's how I learned about it, and now I regularly do this as a guaranteed hit on other players near me to keep them away. Get wrecked again, Shortcat. That's what you get for being Shortcat. So, hammers do have skill involved as the user, but not really as the victim. Because of the arc, you often cannot see them coming, and the hitbox is so big that you probably won't dodge it anyway. Also, hammers are the only attack item that cannot block a red shell, and you get hammers near top spots where red shells are common. So, often you'll just want to throw them away immediately, which is not the best sign of it being a good item. But hammers definitely can be a very useful item in some circumstances, which is why they didn't make it onto this list. Alright, this is it. It's all been building up to this moment. The number 1 worst item in Mario Kart World is the boomerang. Okay, so right now, half of you are nodding your head and smiling, while the other half is confused. How can the boomerang be worse than the blue shell? How can it be worse than a coin? Oh boy, let me explain. First of all, let's be clear on what the boomerang does. You can throw the boomerang forwards or backwards, and when you throw it, it flies away and then flies back to you, hitting everything and everyone in its path. You can usually throw it up to 4 times, with it only breaking if it hits an explosion or hits an invincibility item like a Mega Mushroom or a Bullet Bill. So if it runs into other players, bananas, shells, whatever else, the boomerang will not break. It just hits all of them. And on the final throw, the boomerang does not return to you. Instead, it travels in a straight line for a very long distance, bouncing on walls. Oh, and here's something you probably did not know about the boomerang. If it's close to hitting another player, it will slightly curve on its own to make sure it hits. And also, when you get hit by the boomerang, it makes you slip. Okay, take a deep breath. So, just from that, you can probably already see a few reasons why I don't like this item. But you know, just for fun, let's go through those exact reasons. Reason number 1, an item is bad if it is not good. Obviously, the boomerang is very powerful as an attack item. It's pretty much a guaranteed hit on your target, and even if you aim wrong, the homing properties might make it hit anyway, and you get 4 tries. But it does a poor job of protecting you. This sounds alright, until you realize that, very often, the downside of the boomerang far outweighs the benefit. So, what is the downside? Well, you have to use up all the throws to get rid of the boomerang. And the boomerang is quite common in middle spots where it is chaotic and you want to use your mushrooms to speed up or re-accelerate from being hit. But you can't, because before you can have your tasty dash mushroom, you need to finish eating your boomerang. This can be a death sentence for your race, not just at the end, but at any point in the race, as you just waste so much time trying to get rid of this thing to get to your next item. It's actually a good strategy to just find the nearest invincible player and throw your boomerang at them to get rid of it. If you are unable to do that, then the boomerang can actively prevent you from taking a shortcut that you should be able to take. And just to add insult to injury, the boo cannot steal a boomerang. So yeah, you're stuck with this until you can get rid of it on your own. This is not just a nerf to the boomerang, it's a buff to the boo, which is already one of the best items in the game. The boomerang is the only item that is just bad to have a lot of the time. Like, you'd rather have literally any other item, or even nothing, instead of the boomerang. Reason number 2, if an item is not useful, getting it more often makes it worse. It might sound like I'm exaggerating just how often the boomerang is actually bad for you, but no, it happens a lot. The boomerang is very common in middle spots, and it's not just the boomerang blocking you from using speed items. You can get a boomerang behind your speed item and it's still bad. For example, if you have it behind a bullet bill, this is worse than having nothing, or having literally any other item behind the bullet bill. Why? Because after I use the bullet, not only do I now lack a good item after it, the boomerang is the only item that I cannot get rid of quickly, which means it also stopped me from replacing it with another item. So in this example, I missed out on 2 chances at a good item because of 1 boomerang. Not only was the boomerang a bad item, it was 2 bad items. Reason number 3, an item is bad if it does not feel good to use it. Obviously, it does not feel good using a boomerang a lot of the time because you're just throwing it to throw it. You want to get rid of it. But what about when you're trying to hit other players? Well, it goes through everything. So it's free. It's not skillful to use this thing, so it doesn't feel good when you land a hit. It feels cheap. It's like landing a red shell snipe versus a green shell snipe. A green shell snipe feels great because it's difficult. Or even if it wasn't one that you perfectly lined up and it was just a lucky throw that did a bunch of bounces, that's crazy, that's hype. But a red shell snipe is not a snipe. The red shell just followed the other player. And you know what? Boomerangs do that too. Reason number 4, an item is bad if it creates too much luck. This is the point I used against the Fire Flower and Ice Flower, and we're using it again for the boomerang. Whatever I said about those items, the boomerang is worse. It's an even more guaranteed hit, it will likely hit even more players, and it also makes you slip. So in certain situations, the boomerang just sends you off the track, even if you were nowhere near the edge, completely ruining your race. And it's not because someone made a skilled snipe to take you out, it's because they just don't want their boomerang. Your whole race is ruined because someone near you pulled a boomerang, and they had no choice but to hit you with it. Wait, did I say someone near you pulled a boomerang? No, maybe your whole race is ruined because someone, somewhere, pulled a boomerang. Because remember, the final throw goes a very long distance, practically forever, and it bounces on walls, and it goes through everything, so it's not going to stop. One of the most common items you'll get hit by, whether you're in a middle spot, or even in first, or even in last, is the final throw of a boomerang. Remember, it's curving to try and hit you. So you really can't get away from this thing. You can just slip off the track and completely lose the race because someone, somewhere, had a boomerang. Reason number 5, an item is bad if the other items in that position are better. The boomerang is most common in middle and upper middle positions. And you know what else is common there? Triple mushrooms. It is so unbelievably overpowered that you can pull triple mushrooms in as high as 5th place. If you're not just looking at raw power of an item, but also the context of where this item can be pulled and how common it is, triple mushrooms has a real argument for being the best item in the game. But that's a topic for another video. For today, all you need to know is that wherever boomerang is common, that's also where you can get triple mushrooms. So often, the best strategy in this situation is just to re-roll items until you get triple mushrooms. And the greatest hindrance in trying to achieve this is, what if you pull a boomerang? But it's not just that. As mentioned earlier, 14th is a very strong position to pull items from. But if you slightly mess it up, or you're willing to risk a 13th place box because 14th is just really far behind and you don't want to wait that long, welcome to Boomerang City. In this spot, you could pull a star, you could pull triple mushrooms, you could pull a golden mushroom, you could also pull a boomerang. And comparing these items is a complete joke. Reason number 6, an item is bad if it creates bad incentives. So this was the reason I used to say that blue shells are flawed because they make it so that the best strategy involves completely avoiding first place whenever possible. And in my opinion, that's not ideal for this game. So how does the boomerang do this? Well, we just talked about how being anywhere above 14th place really risks getting a boomerang. Well, not just a boomerang, also fire flower, triple red shells, and blue shell. You can get all of these if you're not in 14th place or worse. So again, some of the worst items in the game because of which position you can obtain them in. Especially near the end of the race, where your entire race hinges on one item pull, this is just not a risk worth taking. But that's for all of these items I just listed, not just the boomerang. Except the boomerang is still the worst, because if you do get a bad item followed by a good item, you can easily get rid of the first item. But if you get a boomerang in your first slot, you kind of just lose. Like, that's the risk of being anywhere above 14th place. Not only do you have to worry about whether or not you get a good item, you have to worry about whether or not the boomerang will let you use it. So while we think about Mario Kart as being a fight near the front, there is always a second fight going on for who can slow down to 14th place to avoid getting a boomerang. And that's just really lame. And finally, let's add a new rule, because I think we really need it. Reason number 7, an item is bad if a strictly better version of this item already existed in a previous game. It is unbelievable to me how badly Nintendo messed this one up. Because in the previous game, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, the boomerang item is exactly how it should be. In case you're wondering how the boomerang could have been a better item, let's take a look at perfection. This boomerang is similar, but only gets a maximum of 3 throws. But what makes it a truly special item is what happens when you throw it. When you throw the boomerang, you actually lose the item. Then when it comes back to you, you re-obtain the item. You know, like how a boomerang should work. This is much better for a few reasons. Obviously, it just intuitively behaves like a boomerang. It's unique and it's cool. Another reason is that if you don't want the boomerang, you can just throw it away. Sure, it comes back to you, but in your second item slot, so it never stops you from using your other item. And if you just completely don't want the boomerang, you can throw it away at an item set, and it will still try to come back to you, but if you don't have a slot for it, you won't get it back. So this property of boomerangs, combined with the fact that you only get a maximum of 3 throws, means that there are just fewer boomerangs flying around in general. That's already great for the game. But the way that boomerangs leave your item slot and come back makes for some really neat interactions. If you throw away your boomerang, get 2 items, then quickly use the first item, like say it's a coin, you will open up your second slot to receive the boomerang. This is actually a really good strategy in a top spot, as you can gain coins without losing your protection item. And here's another fun one that is really rare, but if you throw the boomerang, then get hit by the shock and lose your items, the boomerang will still come back to you. So in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, we had a perfect version of the boomerang. It's not only a more balanced and useful item, that is never a bad item to have, but it also makes creative use of how a boomerang would actually work to create fun situations. And that was in the previous Mario Kart game. Now we have a boomerang that you're not happy to get, nobody around you is happy to see it, it actively hurts your chances of winning, you have to play in a way to try and avoid getting it, and you can remember a much better version of this item that we've had before, with no explanation as to why it's been gutted. If you could make one change to the game, what would it be? Only one? Remove the boomerang. Easy. Easiest choice of my life.